Hey everybody, this is the Wealthy Sailor. I am John and welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about worrying about the future, mainly on how maybe problems with your financial situation could cause you to worry more than you should about the future, or how you can do things now to prevent certain concerns that you might have later. So if you're anything like me, I've spent a lot of time stressed about situations coming up. I remember way back when I first moved out on my own, I'd spend a lot of time worried about everything from how we're going to pay for food, gas in the car, stuff like that, which is actually what motivated me to start doing a written budget to begin with. I figured if I could write down sort of plan where my money was going, then at least I'd have enough money for the necessities. Now, with that said, executing said plan, completely different story. But it did get me started on tracking and budgeting so that at least for the short future, a week or two ahead, at least I have enough money for food and gas to get me through to the next payday. Now that I make a little more and I become more disciplined with my spending and my situation's just overall improved, now my worrying's become a little different. There's only a few things I really worry about. Worry number one, I actually spend a lot of time worrying about me losing my job, whether it's due to an injury, something that is my fault, or something changing in the U.S. Department of Defense doctrine that doesn't require my job anymore. Which is why I spend a lot of time investing and make sure my money is going to a good place, because the job that I currently have should not be able to last me for a career. It's a in-demand position because of the U.S.'s current, we'll say, ops tempo. So it's something that could go away. In fact, one of the things I pay attention to when I watch politics is what their plans for the war are, because it directly affects my job. So I do worry about that a little bit. Luckily, I've been able to mitigate that by making sure I save a lot and invest a lot. Luckily, if I was to become unemployed tomorrow, that would suck, but I could actually get by for probably over a year without having to work, and my standard of living wouldn't really be affected at all. Anything past that, now you really have to start cutting back. But I'm good for a little while. Now, I'm not saying everybody can do that or should do that. If you're like, say, for example, a police officer in a city, never mind all the political stuff going on, but generally speaking, it's a very good job to have. I mean, you make a steady paycheck. Generally speaking, you're always going to have a job. It's a good thing it's a good career to have. Plus, you have pensions and you're covered by a union and you have good benefits. So you might not be worried about losing your job. But for me, I would be very unrealistic if I didn't at least partially plan for my job disappearing at some point. Okay, so the second thing I worry about is actually what I'm going to do with retirement. Now, this channel has been based around me trying to get ready for that, even though I'm several decades from actually retiring. But I've been doing a lot better with that. I've been a lot more disciplined, a lot more focused. I've been spending a lot more time trying to learn what kind of accounts I need to invest in, how much money I can put into each account before taxes and penalties kick in, and stuff like that. So I am pretty well prepared now. Additionally, each passing payday, I further take a step towards that goal. I invest a lot out of each paycheck, and I make sure anything that I plan to invest that month, I pay like first. I pay my bills, then I pay that. I don't invest whatever's left at the end of the month. That's already invested. The reason I started doing that was that I found if I invest whatever I have left over at the end of the month, I kind of just deprioritize my future and my investing, and I always invest smaller numbers than I should and smaller numbers than I plan to. And the reason I do that is because I tend to overspend that month. So what you do when you overspend in one category, you end up shaving it off of another category. And since my last category of the month was investing, that's the category I shaved it off of. I found if I put that away first, if as soon as I get paid, I sit there and make my investments and I transfer the money into certain accounts, it's gone. Which means that in my head, I only have what's remaining, so it makes it a lot easier to stay disciplined, stay focused on the targets that I set in the other categories. So as each month passes, I actually get better and better set up for retirement. So I'm doing pretty good there. I think for retirement, as long as I stay on goal and barring some sort of catastrophic medical injury or something like that, me and my family should be very good when it comes time for me to retire. So the worry there is still a constant stressor, but I think it's positive stress. It's helping me stay motivated more than keeping me awake at night. I have to admit, if any of these things were keep me awake at night, I'd probably prioritize them first. But no, it's just something that I remember. I want to be ready for retirement, so I save more towards that. So the sort of thing I worry about, at least financially, is actually what I'm going to pass down to my son. And we're thinking about having a baby, so possibly 2 kids, but at the very least, my son. And the thing is that I want to try to help him out as much as possible. Now, I understand that there's certain statistics that show that kids that are sort of born into wealth have different developmental issues. They tend to learn less about money and be less responsible, be less successful. And let's just put that all aside. I at least want the ability to be able to do that. I want to make sure that I have saved enough during my lifetime to be able to pass down something. Now, I'm not saying I want to pass down millions of dollars, though that would be great, but I do want to pass down something. And that's where real estate comes in for me, is that I would really like to get into a position where when I pass away, my son could have a place to live without having a mortgage. You just have to pay taxes on it every year, which is kind of unfair, but we live in America, so he has to pay taxes on it each year. But I think in the United States, we've kind of gotten away from that. And that's really bad. Like, I think by now, people have been here for 4 or 5 generations. Somebody should have paid off a property by now, and you should be able to live there. Like, there should be a lot less turnover in residents. But there isn't. And one of the reasons is that very few people ever actually pay off their property. And the other reason is kind of sad. It's that when people's parents pass away and they do have a paid off property or a property that's almost completely paid off, they already have a place to live usually. So they see it as, I'm going to sell that place and take the money, which would be a smart move if you then use that money to pay off your own mortgage or your own property. But that's not really how it works. People tend to buy things that are depreciating assets like cars, boats, vacations, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy that stuff. I'm just saying that if we're gonna start concentrating on generational wealth, one of the things we have to do is make sure we're making smart choices. So once I realized that I was actually worried about some kind of specific things about money, it made it actually a lot easier to deal with. I made a list of my concerns. I was concerned about losing my job in the short term. I was worried about retirement. And I was worried about what I was going to leave for my son. Once you realize that those are the 3 things that are mainly stressing you, it makes it kind of easy to solve them because you know what the problem is. You're like, okay, well, the first one is probably the easiest. It's like, okay, so have a backup plan if I lose my job. Like right now, since I got out of the military, I can still go to school full time based on my GI Bill, which I got from the military. Plus, I'm doing school now because my company is paying for me to take college classes, so I'm definitely taking advantage of that. I just do stuff like that, and I try to make sure my resume is as diverse as possible, so if I have to, I can easily sidestep into a new career. Additionally, I'm also planning on trying to do something with a franchise or something like that, though I don't have any answers yet, but I will make an entire video about that if something comes from that plan. The second one's pretty easy too, save for retirement. Well, most employers have pretty good retirement stuff, but even if not, you can just make an IRA with your personal bank and you just put the max in there per year and you'll be set for retirement, or at least you'll be pretty close to it. You might have to adjust some things. With that, along with your primary residence being paid off and you're debt-free from credit cards, you'll be set for retirement. The third thing is kind of more difficult. It's trying to make sure your kids are set up. And one of the problems is that you don't really know what your kids would need, but I would say there's at least a couple things you should probably start worrying about with kids. Always important, college. Even though more than half of all of our kids are not going to attend college. However, if they do, it'd be nice to have the money there. The second thing is a lot of people want to help their kids with major milestones. That's buying a house, getting married, and having kids. So I definitely suggest if that's something that's important to you, then start saving now. You don't have to save specifically for that, but just make sure you realize that if that's a priority to you, then and you plan on paying for that, then make sure that's something separate than what you're planning to retire off of. One of my harder things to do as a financial counselor is try to explain to older people who are kind of well off that they shouldn't dip into their IRA or their 401k in order to pay for something for their kids. And some of them just want to. It's like, okay, well, my job is not to tell you what you should or should not do. I'm just going to advise you of the advantages and disadvantages of that action. But if they say, no, I want to do this, it's like, okay, well, then here's how we do it without too much of a problem. So the things that I just explained are things that I worry about financially, and my concerns are much different than anybody else's concerns. It depends on what you're doing, how you're doing, and what your goals are. I know there's people that are probably watching this video who aren't even sure how they're going to buy milk at the end of the week, and that is such a different problem than what I'm having. But I will say that oftentimes, if you just sit down and address the problem like straight on, pull out a piece of paper and a pen and just start kind of making lists, doing a budget and stuff like that, it can really help you get through it. In a lot of cases, not all cases. But I do challenge everybody here to get a piece of paper and write down what you're worried about financially. Try to be as specific as possible on what the problem is or problems, and then write down a solution for it. You don't have to enact the solution. You don't even so much have to have a plan for the solution. But once you know what the problem is, that's the start of the journey. That's the start. And then once you figure out where you want to go, the end of the journey, it makes it a lot easier to figure out the pathway to get there. And I know that seems kind of naive or even like childish to say, but it's true. Once you have those two things, you can figure out the rest of it as you go, or at least you can start piecing together an action plan to fix it. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Give me a like, subscribe, whatever. If you enjoyed the video, remember to send me a message or leave me a comment below if there's something specific you want me to address. Right now, I have about 200 topics that I want to cover in order. However, if you do want me to address something specifically, and I find it interesting, then I'll move that to the next available slot. It really just depends on what it is and whether or not I think that I can properly address that topic. Don't ask me for which stock you should invest $10,000 in, because I will not give you a specific answer for that. That's not really my specialty. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching and keep saving.